Captain Minji floated gently in the observation deck of the research vessel Meridian, watching the stars drift past the reinforced windows. The ship moved quietly through space, its engines humming softly as they approached the Kepler 442 system. She had been out here for 3 months now, leading a small crew of scientists and explorers on what everyone back on Earth called a routine survey mission. The crew was young and eager. Most of them had never been this far from home before. They spent their days scanning planets, taking readings, and cataloging everything they found. It was peaceful work, the kind that let people dream about what might be waiting for them among the stars. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Dr. June from the science station. His voice carried an excitement that made everyone on the bridge look up from their work. Minji pushed herself along the handrails and drifted over to where June was studying his screens. The young scientist's eyes were wide with amazement as he pointed at the data streaming across his display. "Look at these readings from the third planet. There's something down there that doesn't match anything in our databases." The planet below them looked ordinary at first glance. It was rocky and dry, with thin clouds drifting across brown continents. But June's instruments were picking up energy signatures that made no sense. The readings showed structures that were definitely not natural, but they were old. Very old. "How old are we talking about?" Minji asked, studying the strange patterns on the screen. "Maybe 1,000,000 years. Maybe more. But Captain, they're still active. Whatever built these things, their technology is still working after all this time." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity had been exploring space for decades, meeting other alien species through long-range communications, but they had never found proof of a truly advanced civilization. Most of the aliens they knew about were at roughly the same technological level as humans, or slightly behind. Minji made the decision quickly. "Prepare a landing shuttle. We're going down to take a closer look." 6 hours later, Minji stood on the surface of an alien world, breathing recycled air through her helmet and staring at something that took her breath away. Rising from the desert floor were structures made of what looked like crystal, but crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. They were tall and elegant, forming patterns that seemed to shift and change when she wasn't looking directly at them. "The energy readings are off the charts," reported Lieutenant Hyena, the team's engineer. "These crystals are generating power, somehow, but I can't figure out how. It's like they're pulling energy directly from space itself." Dr. June was already taking samples, his equipment beeping constantly as it recorded data. "Captain, this technology is beyond anything we've seen before. Whoever built this was thousands of years ahead of where we are now." As they explored deeper into the crystal formations, they found more wonders. There were chambers filled with floating lights that responded to their presence. Walls covered in symbols that seemed to tell stories, though none of them could understand what the stories meant. And everywhere, the gentle humming of machinery that had been working perfectly for longer than human civilization had existed. "Kwang, need to document everything," Minji said, her voice filled with awe. "This changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy." They spent 3 days on the planet, carefully recording every detail they could find. The crystal structures seemed to welcome them, responding to their touch with new patterns of light and sound. It was as if the ancient builders had wanted their work to be discovered someday. On the last day, something unexpected happened. As Dr. June was taking his final readings from the largest crystal formation, the entire structure suddenly blazed with brilliant light. For a moment, the air around them filled with images, star maps, mathematical equations, and what looked like historical records of civilizations they had never heard of. "Did you record that?" Minji asked urgently. "Every second of it," June replied, his hands shaking with excitement. "Captain, I think these crystals just tried to teach us something." Back on Earth, Admiral Hyun stood in the command center of the Terran Colonial Council, reviewing reports from exploration teams across human space. The news from Captain Minji's mission had reached him just an hour ago, and he was still trying to process what it meant. Humanity had been expanding steadily into space for 30 years, establishing colonies and research stations throughout their local region of the galaxy. They had always approached their expansion carefully, with respect for any life they might encounter. Their exploration ships were painted white as a symbol of their peaceful intentions. "Sir, the data from the Meridian is unlike anything we've seen before," reported his aide, Colonel Dana. "If Captain Minji is right, we've just discovered proof that there are civilizations out there far more advanced than we imagined." Admiral Hyun nodded slowly. He had spent his entire career preparing humanity for the challenges of space exploration, but he had never expected anything like this. The discovery would change everything: how humans saw themselves, how they approached other species, and how they planned their future among the stars. "Begin construction of the deep space exploration fleet immediately," he ordered. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Neither Captain Minji nor Admiral Hyun could have known that their discovery had already been noticed by others who had been watching humanity's rapid expansion with growing concern. The attack came without warning on a quiet Tuesday morning. The colonists on Kepler 442b were just beginning their daily routines when the sky filled with ships that didn't belong to humanity. The vessels were elegant and silver, shaped like teardrops that moved through the atmosphere with impossible grace. Colony Administrator Park was having breakfast with his family when the first ships appeared over New Seoul, the main settlement. His daughter Yuna pointed through the window at the strange craft hovering silently above their town. "Dad, what are those?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity rather than fear. Park didn't have time to answer. A beam of soft white light descended from the nearest ship, and suddenly every electronic device in their home stopped working. The lights went out, the communication system died, and even their emergency beacon fell silent. Across the colony, the same thing was happening. Families found themselves cut off from each other as the alien ships methodically disabled every piece of human technology they could find. But the aliens weren't destroying anything. They were being very careful, very precise. Captain Minji watched from orbit as the silver ship surrounded her research vessel. The Meridian had been conducting its final survey of the crystal ruins when the alien fleet arrived. There were dozens of them, appearing out of nowhere as if they had been waiting. "Captain, they're blocking all our communications," reported Lieutenant Hyena from the communication station. "I can't reach Earth and I can't contact the colony." Before Minji could respond, her main screen flickered to life. The face that appeared was alien but somehow familiar, tall and pale with large eyes that seemed both ancient and sad. When it spoke, the words came through the ship's translation system in perfect human speech. "We are the Hegemony Council," the alien said, its voice carrying a tone of tired authority. "We regret that this intervention has become necessary. Your species has been identified as requiring guidance and protection." "Guidance?" Minji demanded. "What are you talking about? We haven't asked for any guidance." The alien's expression didn't change. "That is precisely the problem. You have discovered technologies that are beyond your current level of development. This creates instability and danger, not just for your species, but for all civilized worlds in this region of space." Down on the planet, the silver ships had begun landing near every human settlement. The aliens that emerged were tall and graceful, wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. They moved through the colonies with quiet efficiency, gathering up all the research data and equipment the humans had collected from the crystal ruins. Administrator Park tried to approach one of the alien groups, hoping to negotiate or at least understand what was happening. But when he got close, one of the aliens simply raised a hand, and Park found himself unable to move forward, as if he was walking against an invisible wall. "Please," he called out. "These are our homes. Our families live here. What do you want from us?" The alien turned to look at him with those large, sad eyes. "We want nothing from you, except compliance. Your children will be taken for proper education. Your research materials will be confiscated for the safety of all. Your settlements will be reorganized according to acceptable standards." "Taken?" Park's voice rose in panic. "You can't take our children." But even as he spoke, he could see it happening throughout the colony. Human children were being gently but firmly separated from their families and guided toward the silver ships. The aliens were not violent or cruel, but they were absolutely determined. When parents tried to resist, they found themselves unable to move, held in place by the same invisible force that had stopped Park. Captain Minji watched in horror as the systematic dismantling of human presence began. The aliens were not destroying the colonies, but they were changing everything. Human buildings were being modified to fit alien standards. Human technology was being replaced with devices that the colonists couldn't understand or control. And, worst of all, human families were being broken apart. "They're not conquering us," she whispered to her crew. "They're civilizing us." The alien on her screen heard her words and nodded approvingly. "You understand correctly, Captain. We have guided many species through this necessary transition. In time, your people will thank us for saving them from the dangerous path they were following." "What dangerous path?" Minji demanded. "We were just exploring, just learning." "Learning too quickly," the alien replied. "Advancing too rapidly. Your species has progressed further in 50 years than most achieve in 500. This creates imbalance and threatens the stability that we have maintained for thousands of years." As Minji watched, she saw the crystal ruins being systematically destroyed. The ancient structures that had welcomed humanity were being reduced to dust by careful alien weapons. 1,000,000 years of history erased in minutes. "Those ruins belonged to another species that learned too quickly," the alien explained, noticing her distress. "They discovered technologies they were not ready for. We were forced to intervene then, just as we intervene now." The truth hit Minji like a physical blow. The hegemony had done this before. They had destroyed other civilizations, other species that had shown too much promise, too much potential. And now, they were doing it to humanity. "You're not protecting us," she said, her voice filled with cold realization. "You're murdering us." The alien's expression remained unchanged. "We are preserving galactic peace. Your species will survive, but under proper guidance. The alternative is extinction." Captain Minji made a decision that would change everything. While the aliens were focused on the colony below, she quietly ordered her ship to record everything they were seeing and prepare for emergency departure. Humanity needed to know what was really happening among the stars. The message from Captain Minji reached Earth 3 weeks after the attack on Kepler 442b. Admiral Hyun was in his office reviewing construction reports when his aide Colonel Dana burst through the door without knocking, her face pale with shock. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," she said, activating the wall screen with shaking hands. The recording began with Captain Minji's voice, strained and urgent. "Admiral, by the time you receive this, everything will have changed. The Kepler colonies are gone, not destroyed but taken. Controlled. The aliens call themselves the hegemony, and they've done this before." Admiral Hyun watched in growing horror as the footage showed silver ships hovering over human settlements. He saw families being separated, children being taken away despite their parents' desperate pleas. He watched as the crystal ruins that had filled humanity with wonder were systematically erased from existence. But it was the final part of the message that made his blood run cold. Dr. June appeared on screen, his normally cheerful face grim with terrible knowledge. "Admiral, we managed to decode some of the data from the crystal ruins before they were destroyed," he said. "The hegemony has been doing this for thousands of years. We found fragments of records from dozens of civilizations, all eliminated, when they showed too much potential for advancement. They call it maintaining galactic stability, but it's genocide disguised as protection." The recording ended with Captain Minji's voice one final time. "Sir, they're coming for Earth next. They won't destroy us outright. They'll civilize us into extinction. We have maybe 6 months before they arrive. Use that time wisely." Admiral Hyun sat in silence for a long moment after the screen went dark. Outside his window he could see the white ships of humanity's exploration fleet being assembled in orbital shipyards. Those ships had been designed for peaceful exploration, painted white to show other species that humans came in friendship. That was about to change. "Colonel Dana, convene an emergency session of the Colonial Council immediately," he ordered, "and send a priority message to every human colony, every research station, every ship in space. Tell them to return to Earth immediately." "Sir." What should I tell them is happening? Admiral Hyun's face was hard as stone. Tell them we're at war. The Colonial Council met in emergency session that same day. Representatives from across human space gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on Luna, their faces showing confusion and growing alarm as they watched Captain Minji's recording. Council President Lee stood at the podium, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. Fellow representatives, what we have seen today changes everything. The hegemony has declared war on human civilization, not through invasion but through forced submission. They intend to break our families, steal our children, and erase our culture. The hall erupted in angry voices. Some called for negotiation, others for immediate military preparation. But President Lee raised her hand for silence. The time for debate is over, she announced. By emergency powers granted to me under the Colonial Charter, I am dissolving this council and transferring all authority to the Terran War Cabinet. Admiral Hyun will serve as military commander of all human forces. Some representatives protested, but their voices were drowned out by those who understood the reality of their situation. Humanity was facing extinction, and only unified action could save them. Admiral Hyun wasted no time. Within hours of taking command, he issued orders that transformed human space. Every civilian ship was recalled and converted for military use. Every factory was retooled to produce weapons and armor. Every scientific research project was redirected toward military applications. The white ships of the exploration fleet underwent the most dramatic change. In orbital shipyards across human space, teams of engineers worked day and night to strip away the peaceful white paint that had covered their hulls. Underneath was the dark composite armor that had always been there, hidden beneath the symbol of humanity's peaceful intentions. They look like shadows now, observed Chief Engineer Sola as she watched the transformation. Like ships made of darkness itself, the nickname stuck. Within days, everyone was calling them the Black Ships, but the real transformation was happening. In the research labs, Dr. Sola had been one of the scientists studying the crystal technology before the attack. Now she worked with desperate urgency to unlock the secrets that the hegemony had tried to keep hidden. The crystals weren't just power sources, she explained to Admiral Hyun during one of their daily briefings. They were libraries, data storage, systems that contained the entire history of the species that built them. And Admiral, we weren't the first civilization to find them. She activated a holographic display showing fragments of data recovered from Captain Minji's recordings. Look at this. Records of species that discovered crystal technology, species that advanced too quickly, species that were eliminated by the hegemony. There are dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Admiral Hyun studied the data with cold fury. How long have they been doing this? At least 10,000 years, possibly longer. They've turned genocide into a system, a way of maintaining their control over the galaxy. Any species that shows too much potential, too much independence, gets the same treatment we just received. And the other species? The ones still alive? Dr. Sola's expression was grim. They're all client states now, dependent on hegemony technology. Following hegemony rules, they've forgotten how to be free. Admiral Hyun stood in silence, looking out at the growing fleet of black ships. Humanity had 6 months to prepare for the arrival of the hegemony. 6 months to become something they had never been before. Doctor, he said finally, I want you to focus all your research on one thing. Don't try to match their technology. Make it better. Make it ours. Dr. Sola nodded grimly. Understood, sir. They want to civilize us into submission. Let's show them what human civilization really looks like when it's fighting for its life. Outside, the black ships continued to grow in number, their dark hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun like the promise of storms to come. Captain Minji stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Retribution, watching the stars through the reinforced viewport. The vessel was nothing like her old research ship. This one was built for war, its black hull designed to absorb sensor scans and slip through space unseen. She had volunteered to lead the first strike mission, and Admiral Hyun had given her the most dangerous assignment of all. Target confirmed, Captain, reported Lieutenant Hyena from the tactical station. Hegemony outpost, just like intelligence, said. 3 ships on patrol, maybe 50 aliens on the station. Minji nodded. The outpost was small, but it was also where the hegemony was holding human prisoners taken from the Kepler colonies. According to their intelligence, Administrator Park's daughter Yuna was among them, along with dozens of other children stolen from their families. "Remember, we go in quiet," Minji told her crew. "Hit the patrol ships first, then the station. We're here to rescue our people, not to fight a battle we can't win." The Retribution moved through space like a shadow, its new stealth systems hiding it from hegemony sensors. Dr. Sola's research had given them advantages the aliens didn't expect. While the hegemony had spent thousands of years perfecting their control over other species, they had grown complacent about their own defenses. The first hegemony patrol ship died without ever knowing it was under attack. The Retribution's new weapons, based on modified crystal technology, simply made the alien vessel disappear in a flash of silent light. The second ship had time to send a distress signal before it too was destroyed. The third ship tried to run, but human engines proved faster than hegemony expectations. "Station is launching fighters," Hyena reported. 6 of them, moving to intercept. "Let them come," Minji said calmly. "Time to show them what happens when you take our children." The hegemony fighters moved with the same elegant grace that had once impressed human observers. But grace meant nothing against weapons that could bend space itself. One by one, the alien fighters were swatted from the sky by the Retribution's guns. The station itself was more heavily defended, but it had been built to intimidate rebellious client species, not to fight an enemy that refused to follow established rules of galactic warfare. Human boarding pods punched through its shields and delivered teams of Marines who moved through the corridors with grim determination. Captain Minji led the rescue team personally. They found the human prisoners in what the hegemony called education centers, sterile white rooms where stolen children were being taught to forget their families and accept alien guidance. When Minji found Yuna Park, the girl was sitting quietly in a chair, staring at a screen that showed peaceful images of alien cities. "Yuna," Minji called softly, "we're here to take you home." The girl looked up with eyes that seemed older than they should have been. "The teachers say my family was wrong to resist guidance. They say humans need to learn proper civilization." Minji knelt beside the chair and gently took the girl's hands. "Your father sent me to find you. He never stopped looking for you. None of us did." Something flickered in Yuna's eyes, a spark of the child she had been before the hegemony took her. "Dad is looking for me." "He's waiting for you on Earth," Minji promised. "We all are." The rescue mission was a complete success, but it was only the beginning. As the Retribution escaped with its precious cargo of freed prisoners, Admiral Hyun was launching similar strikes across hegemony space. Human ships appeared without warning at alien facilities, struck with devastating precision, and vanished back into the darkness before reinforcements could arrive. But the rescued prisoners brought more than hope. They brought information. Dr. Sola interviewed every freed captive, learning everything she could about hegemony technology and society. What she discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. "They're not as united as they pretend to be," she reported to Admiral Hyun during their daily briefing. "The hegemony is made up of 12 species, but only 3 of them are actually in charge. The others are just client states, barely more free than the species they help oppress." "Can we use that?" Admiral Hyun asked. "Already are," Sola replied, activating a star map that showed recent human operations. "We're not just rescuing our people anymore. We're broadcasting the truth about what the hegemony really is. Some of the client species are starting to ask uncomfortable questions about their own histories." The truth was spreading faster than the hegemony could contain it. Human broadcasts reached oppressed worlds across the galaxy, carrying recordings of hegemony forces separating families and destroying ancient ruins. The same tactics that had worked for thousands of years were suddenly being exposed to entire populations who had never been allowed to know their own history. Rebellion broke out on 6 worlds in the first month alone. The hegemony responded with increasing desperation, deploying weapons they had kept hidden for emergencies. Planet killers and mind control devices, technologies so terrible that even their own client species were horrified. But humanity, was ready for escalation. Every new weapon the hegemony revealed was studied, analyzed, and countered. The crystal technology that the aliens had tried to hide gave humans insights into faster-than-light communication, energy manipulation, and temporal mechanics that let them stay one step ahead of their enemies. Captain Minji stood once again on the bridge of the Retribution, but now she was part of a fleet. Hundreds of black ships moved through space in perfect coordination, striking at hegemony targets with ruthless efficiency. They had learned that mercy was seen as weakness by their enemies, and they no longer had patience for the elaborate rules of galactic warfare. "Next target, Captain?" Hyena asked. Minji looked at the tactical display showing hegemony positions throughout their local space. Each dot represented aliens who thought they had the right to steal children and destroy civilizations. "In the name of stability, all of them," she said quietly. "We hunt them all." The black ships moved deeper into enemy territory, carrying with them the promise that humanity would never again bow to those who claimed the right to rule the stars. The final battle began at dawn on Hegemony Prime, the ancient capital world, where 12 species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Admiral Hyun stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Defiance, watching as the largest fleet in human history dropped out of hyperspace around the enemy homeworld. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface," reported Commander Jin from the sensor station. "They're powering up weapons we've never seen before." Hyun nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Hegemony Council would not surrender their power easily, and they had kept their most terrible weapons hidden until now. But humanity was no longer the peaceful species that had once painted their ships white and approached the stars with open hands. "Signal all ships," Hyun ordered. "Begin the final phase." Around Hegemony Prime, nearly 1,000 black ships moved into attack formation. They came from every direction at once, their dark hulls seeming to drink in the light of the system's twin suns. Each ship carried weapons built from stolen hegemony technology, improved by human engineering, and powered by the crystal energy that the aliens had tried to keep secret. The hegemony fleet met them in space above the planet. It was beautiful and terrible to watch. Elegant silver ships moving in perfect formations against the chaotic swarm of human vessels that attacked from impossible angles and used tactics no civilized species had ever imagined. Captain Minji piloted, her retribution through the enemy formation like a knife through silk. Her ship twisted and rolled between enemy fire, striking at weak points the hegemony had never bothered to defend, because no species had ever been brave enough to exploit them. "Direct hit on their command vessel," reported Lieutenant Hyena. "Their formation is breaking apart." But the real surprise came when the planet's surface weapons finally fired. Beams of pure destruction reached up from Hegemony Prime, weapons that could crack moons and boil oceans. The first few human ships caught in those beams simply vanished, erased from existence. "All ships implement Protocol 7, Admiral Hyun commanded calmly. Protocol 7 was humanity's answer to overwhelming firepower. Instead of trying to fight the planet killers directly, the black ships scattered into 1,000 different attack patterns. They moved like a school of fish, each ship independent but part of a larger intelligence that flowed around the enemy's desperate attempts to destroy them. Dr. Sola watched the battle from the Defiance's science station, monitoring the quantum disruption fields that were humanity's greatest secret weapon. The technology came from the crystal ruins, from the records of species that had faced the hegemony before and lost. But humans had learned something those ancient civilizations never had. Sometimes you had to break the rules to win. "Admiral, the quantum fields are destabilizing their power grid," she reported. "Their weapons are losing coherence." One by one, the great weapons of Hegemony Prime fell silent. The planet's defenses, built to intimidate client species into submission, crumbled before an enemy that refused to be intimidated. In orbit, the last of the silver ships died in brilliant flashes of light. But Admiral Hyun knew that destroying the hegemony's military was only half the victory. The real battle was for the future of the galaxy itself. "Open a channel to all worlds in hegemony space," he ordered. "Full broadcast, maximum power." His image appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds, reaching billions of aliens who had lived their entire lives under hegemony rule. Many of them had never seen a human before, but they all recognized the determination in his eyes. "People of the galaxy," Hyun began, his voice carrying across the stars. "For thousands of years you have been told that the hegemony protects you. You have been told that their guidance keeps you safe from the chaos of freedom. Today, we offer you the truth." The broadcast that followed showed everything: the destruction of human colonies, the separation of families, the systematic erasure of entire civilizations throughout galactic history. For the first time, the subject species of the hegemony saw what their rulers had done in the name of stability. "We do not seek to replace the hegemony's tyranny with our own," Admiral Hyun continued. "We offer you a choice that has been denied to you for millennia. Join us in building a galactic commonwealth based on freedom, equality, and the right of all species to determine their own destiny." The response was immediate and overwhelming. On world after world, populations rose up against their hegemony. Overseers, client species that had enforced the aliens' will for centuries, suddenly found themselves facing rebellions they could not contain. Some worlds chose to fight for their freedom, others chose to negotiate. A few remained loyal to the old order, but they were vastly outnumbered by those who embraced the possibility of something better. Captain Minji stood on the observation deck of her ship, watching as former hegemony worlds sent representatives to join the growing Commonwealth. Ships of dozens of different species approached the human fleet, their crews nervous but hopeful. "It's really over, isn't it?" asked Lieutenant Hyena, joining her at the viewport. Minji nodded, but her expression remained serious. "This part is over, but now comes the harder work, building something better than what came before." Years later, the crystal ruins were rebuilt as a memorial on what had once been called Hegemony Prime. The ancient structures hummed with their eternal music, but now their song was joined by the voices of free peoples from across the galaxy. Children of dozens of species played among the crystals, learning about the civilizations that had been destroyed for daring to reach for the stars. Admiral Hyun, now older and bearing the title of Commonwealth President, often visited the memorial. He would stand among the singing crystals and remember the price of freedom, the cost of standing up to those who claimed the right to rule others. Above him, the black ships continued their patrol of the galaxy, no longer hunters but guardians. They ensured that no species would ever again face extinction for the crime of dreaming of something better than submission. The memorial's inscription was simple but powerful. They made it personal. We made it permanent.